Welcome to this video where we are going to make a replica of a Greek vase. Greek pottery was very fascinating and very lucrative. We learn a lot from Greek society, ordinary life, their mythology, and so much more by looking at their Greek pottery. This you can see is a beautiful pottery, and we want to replicate this vase, which is the vase Euphronios, made by Euphronios. He's the painter, and it's titled, this is side A, and this is the side where Heracles is resting on Taios. And you can see it is from a detail from an Athenian red figure calyx crater. So the calyx crater refers to the shape of the vase. I'm going to refer to an older edition of Art Through the Ages, the 5th edition. This is a beautiful edition. It is black and white, but what it does provide us is the shape of the complete vase. And here you can beautifully see the calyx crater shape. And another thing that I love about this edition is that it shows you a small diagram of the Greek vase shapes that were most used. And the shape refers to a specific use of the vase or the pot or the bowl as well. We are going to make C, you can see, which is the crater from the Greek to mix. It is a bowl for mixing wine and water, the usual beverage of the Greeks. So that is our point of inspiration. I'm going to refer back to this page, and I've taken this silhouette and I drew a diagram. So let me just move the books around so that I have more space. All right. So I took that basic shape and I replicated it in a drawing. I knew beforehand what the height of the vase should be and what the width of the widest part of the vase, which is the top rim, as you can see in that diagram, what that will be. And from those dimensions, I just folded it in half and I drew as close to possible that basic silhouette that you can see there. And then I traced it so that they mirror each other perfectly. Maybe a better way to explain it is to use an actual bowl. You'll just bear with me. So pretend that we are looking at the bowl from the side, and if we had to measure the height of the bowl, then we would measure it from the topmost part to the end of the foot, and that is the height of the bowl. And if we wanted to measure the diameter, we would measure it from this top part of the bowl. So this same measurement, when I look at it from, not from the side, but from the top, it will give me the diameter of the round circle of the top. And if I want to know the diameter of the foot, I will measure from the side, and then that diameter will be the same diameter of the foot at the bottom. So I'm doing the basic same thing in my planning, in this diagrammatical planning that I made. The height of the bowl is 15 centimeters, or about 150 millimeters. So it's going to be approximately that size. And the diameter of the rim, the widest part, because you can see in this image, the widest part of the bowl is going to be 18 centimeters or 180 millimeters. Then you can see there's a fold line here. I folded my page in half, and I used this photograph as a rough approximation of this shape of the bowl. And then I drew it on the side so that I can have a rough idea of the height of each distinct area where the shape changes. This is definitely the widest part, so the bowl keeps on going in, and this width of the foot or the base, it doesn't reach the same width of the height, as you can see that line. And then I just traced it so that both sides are equal. Then I used a compass and using again this fold line, which would be in exactly the half of the bowl, right? I took that measurement. The half of 18 centimeters is 9 centimeters. And then I transferred it to a new height and drew what the top view of the bowl's height diameter is going to be. And then I did the same for the base. So I took the compass and I determined the halfway point, which the whole diameter is about 7 centimeters or 70 centimeters. And then I drew the base. This is what I'm going to use as my diagram for planning the pot. This gave me the basic dimensions and breakthrough. From this diagram, I determined what the width, the top rim's widest, its radius is 180 millimeters or 18 centimeters. So that is what that top rim's opening will look like. And then the smallest part, which is here at the bottom, is the base, which when you measure it is 70 millimeters or 7 centimeters. And that is what that shape of that base is basically going to be, roughly. And then what we're going to do from this, because you now know what this diameter is, you can use your maths to work out what the length of that is. And from that length, which is to work out the radius, this, if it, as though it was one continuous line, you take 2 times pi times the radius. That gives us around 565,2 millimeters. So from that, I determined this is the width of the vase as though it is laid flat. And I divided into 16 equal parts and made each segment, identified a key spot where it is going to change in the shape of the vase. So there are basically 2 areas, here and here. Here it comes in slightly inward, and there it comes out, in and out quite dramatically. And then you can see that here as well. There's the slight kinching in, and then here's the more dramatic going in and out to create the base of the foot. And from that, I developed the template for the basic structure, the basic paper structure of the paper mache bowl. So let me quickly go and get that. This is what that bowl looks like, and this is the template that I have developed. And I have just pasted it onto nice sturdy cardboard to give my bowl a lot more structure. And now I can cut it out to where the solid lines are, and where the dotted lines are, those are going to be folding lines. Let's go ahead and do that. All right, I have now cut out 1/2 of the bowl, or one side of the bowl, and this little lip is what will be used to glue or attach this half to the other half. So don't by accident cut that off. Before I'm actually going to cut on all the solid lines, I am going to use a bone scorer, or if you don't have a bone scorer, use a ordinary butter knife. They work just as well, actually, if not better. But it shouldn't be a sharp knife. We want a blunt edge. And what we're going to do is you're going to use the butter knife and your steel ruler, and everywhere you see a dotted line, you're actually going to create an indent before you cut. And then once you've done all the dotted lines, then you can cut along all the solid lines. And that way, once we get to the point where we need to fold these dotted lines, they will fold a lot easier and a lot neater. So let's go ahead and do that. As you can see, I finished cutting out the template, and I cut it out after I made the indent lines with the bone scorer, or in this case our butter knife. And now I'm ready to assemble the template, but before I'm going to do that, just these bottom lips, I'm just going to cut them a little bit smaller because the base is rather small and they just take up a bit more space. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it like so. I'm going to do that for each side. This is the part that's going to be hidden, so it doesn't have to be exact. I'm just cutting off the excess bits. I finished cutting off these small little bits, and now it's time to start folding. So wherever there's a dotted line, we're going to fold it. I'm going to first fold and glue the top half or the top of the vase, and the base or the foot I'm going to leave for last. So let me show you how I will do that. Look how easy it is to fold because I've made those indents with the knife. Now that I've finished to fold the various segments into position, we're ready to glue the parts together. So I'm going to turn it around, and I'm going to use this wood glue. Any kind of a white craft glue is going to work really well. You need a strong glue for this. I'm going to focus on the top two segments first. I'm going to glue them together, and I'm going to leave the foot or the base for last. So I had finished gluing the top two sections, and you can see the shape of the vase is emerging very nicely. This is one half of the bowl, so that's why you need to make two sides. And this is what it looks like inside. It's glued in nicely. So now I just have the foot left to do. So I'm going to take the glue and add some glue. And then all you need to do is just glue it together. Right, so I'm going to continue doing that, and then I will allow it to dry, and then it is going to look like this. So the two halves are done. They're glued together. It's time to assemble them. So all we need to do is we need to glue all the lids of each side, and then just ensure fasten them. We've glued both sides, both halves together, and then this is what the inside of the bowl looks like. This is the foot, and that's her profile. So now the only part that we still need to glue on is this base of the foot, that it will come here at the bottom, just to close it up. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to fold the lids to a side, and I'm folding them kind of in a whirlwind all to the same side, and then little parts that overlap, I'm just going to trim that so that that looks nice and neat, and the foot will attach a lot easier to the base. Okay, that looks good. Okay, and then I'm just going to attach it and wait for it to dry. I've glued on the base onto the vase, and this is beautiful. So it doesn't have to be exactly perfect, because this becomes the basis structure for the paper mache that we're going to make. So all these inconsistencies, we'll cover that up with the paper mache. There's one more thing I want to do before I'm going to start with the paper mache. And looking at this, looking back at our shape, our vase shape, you'll see it's got a rim here at the top that goes out a little bit, and then it also has this part here at the bottom that seems to also have a bit of a bulge. You can see in my diagrammatic drawing that to create the geometric shape, that's basically the line that I've created. So this part of the bulge, we want to add some of that bulge, and when you add a bit of a bulge here at the top rim. So to achieve that, I'm going to use a piece of rope, and I'm going to glue it to this top part of the shape, and also here where the other, here where the other sort of fold is in terms of the shape of the vase. So I'm going to glue it all around, and then once that is dry, we can begin with paper mache. This is a final preview of the template finally assembled together. So you can see with the rope attached, with the rope glued on, and I have glued it all around, added the base. That's what it looks like inside. And then lastly, not to forget about the handles. So I cut out the part from the template, and I glued on rope on both sides of the handle so that it will have a very nice three-dimensional feel. The next step will be to begin the paper mache. I'm not going to attach or glue the handles onto the vase yet. I'm going to save that for a little later. I'm first going to apply about 4 layers of paper mache to the outside of the vase. I will allow that to dry. Then I will apply some to the inside of the vase, and then we will focus on the handles. So let me go ahead and show you how to paper mache. You really need 2 ingredients to make the paste for the paper mache, which will be flour and water. The recipe doesn't have to be that scientific. I roughly go for a 1-to-1 ratio. So that means if I use 1 cup of flour, I'll use 1 cup of water. I use this shaker cup to pour it in and mix it with. Then it's a very easy method to mix and to store it as well. If you don't use everything in one sitting, then you can actually store it like this in the fridge. Then of course, you're going to need paper. The best paper is newsprint. Newsprint is very pliable, it's very soft, and it's not printed with a gloss. What you're going to need to do is, every paper has a grain, and this paper's grain, I'm just going to take one paper. And you can see if I tear it this way around, it struggles to to demonstrate. It struggles if I go along the vertical to tear into a straight line. But if I take that page and I go and I tear it in the horizontal, it creates strips a lot better. And that's what you want. So just go on and tear a lot of these strips. You don't want it cut. You do want to tear it because you can see it's going to create an uneven edge, and that's what's going to make your structure a lot stronger. Just going to tear a couple of those. I actually am going to use a lot of photocopied paper. So I have a lot of this kind of paper around that I can reuse. This can also work really well. Any kind of paper that does not have a gloss will work well. And look how nice it tears with that uneven line. Okay, we've got our paper ready, and we have mixed the flour and the water in the shaker cup. And then I have this open container, and I'm going to pour some of the paste into my container. Let me first demonstrate the first strip, so to speak. So what you do is you take your strip of paper and you dip it in the paper machè paste, this flour and water mix. And you only need to dip it on the one side because that's the side that you're going to glue it onto your vase. And then I'm just taking my fingers and I'm running it through the strip like that so that I remove all excess paste. So it's not too messy, just a little bit messy. And then I will attach my paper I will attach it to the vase, and you see what I'm doing. I'm using my fingers to make sure it follows the form. Whoops. I'm attaching it to the vase, and you can see here where we reach the rope. I'm using my fingers so it follows around that rope. And then I glue it all around. Okay, let's switch to side view so you can have a better look. All right, you can see I'm using the bottle as a kind of a prop to keep the vase upright, and it just allows for easy access actually. And it allows for the various strips to dry evenly. So I've applied the first strip. Let me show you again how to apply the strip. Again, I'm taking the piece of paper. I'm going to dip it in the paste. And I'm just using my hands, my fingers, and I'm removing the excess paste. Alright, and then I use the strip and I attach it to the vase, and you can see I use my hands to help shape the paper around the template vase structure that we have made. And every time I come around to this rope, I just let the paper move around it. This part feels a little bit dry, and then I just add a little bit more of the flour and water mix. And then I just turn it around and let the strip grow through into the inside. I'm going to continue this process until the whole vase has been covered with these strips. That will then be one layer of paper strips. I'm going to create about 4 layers of the paper strips. Then I'm going to allow the vase to dry completely before I continue with more strips. Don't forget about the handles. I'm also going to cover the handles with strips of the paper machè glue and paper strips. And I'm going to leave these parts open because they're going to be the parts that attach to the vase at a later stage. So I want them quite thin and pliable. And yes, I'll show you later on how we will attach the handles. So let's go ahead and add all the layers of paper strips with the machè glue to our vase. It's the next day. I applied the 4 layers of paper using the flour water mixture glue as my glue to the template, and then I allowed it to dry overnight. It looks so white because for the last layer I used white paper. I wanted the shape of the vase to come through on the video very well. This is currently what it looks like inside. You can see I've paid attention to the top rim, and I began to flatten the inner frame, so to speak. But I haven't worked on these bigger frame extension pieces. Not sure how we would articulate them. If you want to flatten them, you can very easily do that. And you see, just use in the same direction. So you either choose clockwise or anti-clockwise. And you just use your fingers. I'm going to go clockwise. I'm just using my fingers to press them down. And I'm going to do that for a while until they're nice and flat. And then I will use the wood glue to paste them to each other and paste them to the surface of the vase. And I will use some paper to just cover it up as well, so that the inside of the vase also looks nice. And this is what the handles look like at this stage. So I've also applied about 4 layers of paper, and you can see I have left the lips, I've left them free. I didn't add rope to those ends because they are going to be folded and they're going to be used to glue onto the vase. So my next step is to focus on the interior and I'm not going to add too many layers, probably just 2 layers, and let that dry, and then add the handles to the vase shape by gluing them on. So let's go ahead and do that. I finished applying all the layers of paper mache to the project. I've allowed it to dry overnight, so you can hear from that sound it's very hard. It's very sturdy. This is what it looks like inside after I applied some layers of paper mache to the inside of the vase. And I've attached the handles. So I've glued them on, and then after I glued them on, I also used some paper strips with the flour water mixture to just even it out and cover where I attached it so it looks nice and neat. You can now, at this stage, just create or draw your design directly onto the vase. If you look up close, you'll see there is some of that flour that has dried that creates a bit of an uneven texture. And I am going to apply a white PVA paint as an undercoat before I begin painting with the gouache. This is just going to allow the gouache to stick to the vase a lot easier. It's just going to look a lot better. This is the paint that I'm going to apply. So just an interior white PVA paint. So that's going to be my next step. The paint has dried nicely, and now we are ready to begin with the very exciting phase of painting the design onto our vase. Let's do that.